Hello there. Welcome to the Kenobi Podcast. I'm Chris Kenobi. Today I want to talk about something that's important. Today I want to talk about something that's really serious. Today I want to talk about something that involves American history. But before I go there, just a couple quick things. One, how you guys like those tariffs? Especially I'm talking to my Trump supporters out there. How you guys like those tariffs? You said you wanted your 401ks to go up. How's that working out for you? I'm not saying I told you so, but I told you so. Okay? Now, moving on. I want to talk about something that's very serious, that involves a shameful part of American history. It's a shameful part of American history, and because it's a shameful part of American history, America doesn't want to talk about it. You see, there are certain things in all of our lives that happen and that brought us a level of shame. And so what happens when we have a shameful issue in our past and our family? We try to act like it didn't happen. We try to cover it up. We try to minimize it. We put it in a little box in our mind and heart and in the family's closet. And we just hope that over time, somehow, this thing just is going to evaporate like it never happened and everybody will just act normal. But as you know, if you have family shame and family issues like that, hiding things that are shameful never works out. Because as long as you hide it, you're always going to be chained to it. And as long as you're chained to it, you're never going to be in the fulfillment of who you're supposed to be. So today I'm going to talk about how we should deal with shame by bringing up a very shameful issue that affects America and affects American history. And I'm talking about slavery. Yeah, slavery. The big S word that nobody wants to talk about because there's two things in our history as Americans that Americans don't discuss. And one is the exploitation of the American Indian. And the second one is slavery of the black race. These are two things that we just don't want to talk about. We try to put them in America's closet and act like it never happened. We try to put it in America's closet and act like we should just all get over it. After all, it's been a couple hundred years and so forth. We should just move on right now. And so when we try to bring these things up, you may call me woke. You may tell me I'm whining. You may tell me to get over it. But I can't get over it because we've never pulled it out of the closet to deal with it. And something happened last week. Our president, Mike King, brought up something last week and did something last week that proved my point, that as long as we deal with shame by hiding it, we'll always be chained to it. And the only answer to deal with it is either one, you pull it out of the closet and you get through it no matter what it is, and you work together to fix it, or two, you simply try to erase it and blot it out of your family's history, of your country's history, as if it never happened. And so that's what I want to talk about. And before I talk about it, I'm going to ask you to do three things for me. I'm going to ask you to like, I'm going to ask you to subscribe, and I'm going to ask you to share. And in the sharing part, I want you to think about a black person, a black American that you know. All right? I want you to think about a white American that you know. And after I'm done, I want you to think about which black American, which white American that you would like to share this with. Maybe these are issues that's on your heart as a black American that you never brought up because you knew it was a touchy subject of shame. So maybe you can use me as your platform to explain your point of view. If you're a white person, maybe you need to hear this, but maybe you need to pass it off to another white person that you know that don't expound to this point of view, but needs to hear it. So I'm going to ask you to pass this off to someone that you know, someone that you care about personally, and someone that you believe, a friend, coworker, in-law, pastor, layperson, anyone that you, politician, anyone that you think needs to hear this. I'm going to ask you to share it. All right. So something happened last week, right? I was working on part 2 of God Gave Us Trump. Why? But then our king decided to do something last week to totally throw me off guard. And when he totally threw me off guard, I was left to have to deal with this grenade that he dropped in my Afro-American lap. So I'm going to talk about that. And I'm going to talk about it today. I'm talking about it to you as a Black American. I'm talking about it to you as a Black man. I'm coming to you and talking to you about it as a white man. That's a point of view for a different day. And I'm coming to talk to you about this as a Christian, someone that loves what Jesus loves, hates what Jesus hates. So I'm hoping today that you can walk a little bit in one of those shoes with me. And remember, in a certain point of view over here, we've got your point of view, which we respect. We've got my point of view, which I want you to understand. And in the middle somewhere between all this is all this confusion, all this anger, all this strife, all this lack of empathy and understanding. But we've learned over here how to bridge all that stuff. And we call it the bridge of truth. And when we put a bridge over that confusion, you can't change truth. You can't mess with truth. Truth is fact. Truth is canon. And so when we have truth, maybe your point of view won't change and maybe mine won't change. But now we don't have that strife. We don't have that confusion. We have agreeing to disagree with respect. So I want you to think about one of those shoes that you can fit in today and walk with me. So this is what happened last week. Last Thursday, I minded my own business. I'm just talking about my king. I'm not bothering anybody. And all of a sudden this came across the news. And I'm going to read this article for you. I'm going to give you the byline so you can Google it up and read it yourself. Okay? So here's what the byline says. Historians see Trump attacks on the Black Smithsonian as an effort to sanitize racism. In other words, to clean it up, to make racism look better. Okay? So then it goes on to say, this was last Thursday because our king signed this executive order. President Donald Trump, executive order accusing the Smithsonian Institution of not reflecting American history, notes correctly that the country's founding fathers declared that all men are created equal. Well, that's in conflict with the Smithsonian because the Smithsonian is reflecting history on the bridge of truth that showed that we were created equal by God, but not treated equal as Americans. Because the article goes on to say, but it doesn't mention that the founders enshrined slavery in the United States Constitution and declared enslaved persons as 3/5 of a person for the purpose of the census. Full stop. I want you, and I'm talking about my white brothers. I'm talking about my white brothers. And if a white brother's not listening to this, I'm going to ask my Black brothers to send this to the white brother that you know loves you and respects you. Okay? Because I want that white brother or sister to think about this. That Black person, that Black American that you love, that loves you, that you're good friends with, that you share time with together. They've been over your house, you've been over there. You guys have eaten together. You went out together. You go to church together, or they sit next to you in church. They work right beside you in a cubicle. You're their close friend. When you have a problem, you go to that Black American. They love you. They support you. They're by your side in some of the toughest times of your life. They've been by your side. Now, I want you to stop and think about how much you love that Black American or that family or that Black pastor or that Black coworker or that Black friend, and understand that the United States Constitution looks at that person that you love as 3/5 of a man. A cow is more valuable than this person that you love because a cow is a whole cow. A goat is more valuable than that person that you love and loves you, because a goat is a whole goat. But that friend that you love is looked at as 3/5 of a person. Now, because I know you love that person and I know that person loves you, how does that make you feel for that person that you love? I'll continue. It says civil rights advocates, historians, and black political leaders sharply rebuked Trump on Friday for his order entitled Restoring Truth and Sanity to American History. They argue that his executive order targeting Smithsonian Institution is his administration's latest move to downplay how race, racism, and black Americans themselves have shaped American history. Goes on to say, it seems that we're headed in the direction where there's an attempt to deny that the institution of slavery even existed. Remember, if we don't want to face the shame, we want to erase the shame. Or that Jim Crow laws and segregation and racial violence against black communities, black families, black individuals even occurred, said historian Charles Merrick Harris. The Thursday executive order cites the National Museum of African American History and Culture by name and argues that the Smithsonian as a whole is engaging in a concerted scheme and widespread effort to rewrite our nation's history. So by the Smithsonian publicizing the truth of what happened in slavery and civil rights, they're in a conspiracy to make America look bad. Okay? Instead of celebrating an unparalleled legacy of advancing liberty, individual rights, and human happiness, the order argues that a corrosive, divisive, race-centered ideology has reconstructed the nation as inherently racist, sexist, oppressive, or otherwise irredeemably flawed. It empowers Vice President J.D. Vance to review all properties, programs, and presentations to prohibit programs that degrade shared American values or divide Americans based on race. Trump also ordered Interior Secretary Doug Burgum to determine if any monuments have been removed or changed to perpetuate a false reconstruction of American history or inappropriately minimize the value of certain historical events or figures. So that Confederate flag that was outside the courthouse that was taken down is going back up. Those statues of Robert E. Lee are coming back up. It doesn't matter how it makes me feel, because when I say it makes me feel upset, you say I'm woke. So rather than call me woke and me say that it upsets me, what you're gonna do is you're gonna erase that it ever existed. Slavery never happened. Therefore, I've got no reason to be upset about a Confederate flag. I've got no reason to be upset about Robert E. Lee. Okay. It also says, Trump's approach is a literal attack on Black America. The Black Smithsonian, as it is affectionately called, is indeed one of the heartbeats of Black American history. The Afro-American Museum, one of 21 distinct Smithsonian entities, opened alongside the National Mall in 2016, the last year that Barack Obama held office as the nation's first Black chief executive. The museum, watch this, the museum chronicles chattel slavery, Jim Crow segregation, and its lingering effects. What are lingering effects? You know what lingering effects are? It means that in this century, we're still dealing with the issues of slavery because we never dealt with the shame of it. We never acknowledged it. We never looked at the person and said, I'm sorry. We never done it. So the lingering effects, because there's still an imbalance here, is that there's economic inequality. There's housing inequality. There's unfair labor practices, unfair hiring practices. Okay? There's unfair educational issues. So all of these things are still lingering, and black people are still dealing with these things because we never opened up the door to fully address the shame of slavery. But it also says its lingering effects, but also highlights the determination, successes, and contributions of individual black Americans and black institutions throughout U.S. history. So what it's saying is, not only are you erasing that slavery ever happened, what you're going to erase is any contribution that black Americans made to the success of this country. Anything that we've done to contribute to America being the global power that it is, to America being this city on the hill, to America being the #1 superpower in the world, any contribution that a black person made for that doesn't exist anymore. You're taking that away. And it makes sense, because if I'm only 3/5 of a man, I've only got 3/5 of a brain, so how can I contribute anything? But let me tell you some things that black Americans did invent or supply or contribute. The clothes dryer, the toilet, potato chips. Whoa, that's a big contribution. Peanut butter. Garrett Morgan invented the gas mask and the traffic signal. Charles Drew, blood storage for blood testing. Katherine Johnson was the NASA black mathematician. Elon, she don't exist no more. Maya Angelou, Duke Ellington, Gordon Parks, Jesse Owens, Patricia Bath, who invented laser cataract surgery. So these are just a few, but all of these contributions will no longer be attributed to being given to America by black Americans because they simply don't exist. We never had the tools because we're 3/5 of a person. We never had the tools to contribute. So whatever you ever benefited, for every potato chip you ever put in your mouth, for every spoonful of peanut butter or whatever spread you ever put on that Jiffy, on that piece of bread that was contributed by a black American, it no longer exists. But I would like to ask you, how do you feel about eating those potato chips knowing now that they've been created and they were supplied and they were contributed by black Americans? How do you feel about eating that peanut butter? How do you feel about it knowing someone, and maybe knowing your dad or your mom that had to have cataract surgery? Every time you go to the traffic light, knowing that that's there saving lives because of a black person. Hope it makes you think. Okay, so it goes on to say that the strangest part of this is that in 2017, our king, our president, when he won his first term, when God brought him up and established him, he went to this museum, this very museum now that he's attacking with this executive order and trying to shut it down. He went to this museum because he had just won the presidency. He did enjoy an uptick in black votes in that first term. And in his way of thanking those black voters, in his way of acknowledging those black voters that stood behind him on the podium saying, "Blacks for Trump," he went to this museum himself with Tim Scott and Ben Carson, both black, one a senator, one was his director of housing, urban development. And he called this very museum our king. Now, you see, this is included in those 18,000 lies that I talked about. Because when he went in 2017, he called this place a national gem. A national jewel, a gem. That's what he called it. And here's his words, the words of our king. It says, "I am deeply proud that we now have have a museum that honors the millions of Afro-American men and women who have built our national heritage, especially when it comes to faith, culture, and the unbreakable American spirit. I know that President Obama was here for the museum's opening last fall, but I'm honored to be the second sitting president to visit this great museum. Now, I'm going to ask you a question. How can you justify that for my king? Now, he went there and said it was great. Now he's taking it out. You know why I believe, and I don't have no proof that he's doing this? Because what happened was when God brought him up, he had the black vote. And he was grateful for the black vote. But then God brought him down in 46 and brought Biden up in 46. And Biden knocked it out to park with the popular vote and the black vote. So in our king's mind, you know, because our king believes in retribution for people that have treated him unfairly, our king probably said, if I ever get back up there in 47, I'm going to teach those blacks a lesson because they didn't vote for me. And now when God brings him back up in 47, he says to himself, I'm not going to be 48 because it's illegal. So you know what? I'm going to put those blacks on my revenge tour, and I'm going to erase every part of everything that they've ever given to this great country. You know what I told you guys before? When we talk about making America great again, we're going back to a time when I'm 3/5 of a man and I've given you nothing. Because I'm 3/5 of a man, I contributed nothing. You're going back to a time when I should be very happy to go sit at the back of the bus. That's make America great again. That's that point in history. And this is what he's pointing us to. And it goes on to say, the Defense Department at one point temporarily removed training videos recognizing the Tuskegee Airmen and an online biography of Jackie Robinson. In February, Trump fired Air Force General C.O. Brown Jr., a champion of racial diversity in the military, as the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. Okay. It also goes on to say the administration has fired diversity officers across government, curtailed some agency celebrations of Black History Month, and terminated grants and contracts for projects ranging from planting trees in inner city communities to studying achievement gaps in American schools. Okay. So that's what happened. So, and I'm also going to bring you up on something. You remember when our king said that's part of the 18,000 lies? Remember when our king said he had nothing to do with Project 2025, but yet the architect of Project 2025 is now part of his administration and his cabinet? What he just did with this executive order is part of Project 2025. That's the bridge of truth. Can't change the facts. Grab Project 2025. It's online. And when you get to the place about Black Americans, you're going to see that all of what he's doing is part of this. So that's what happened. That's our king. So now when I'm looking at this, and I'm being honest with you, when I'm looking at this, I'm getting upset, okay? I'm getting upset, and I'll tell you why I'm getting upset. I'm getting upset because I don't understand why nobody's saying nothing. I don't understand that when this came out, yeah, it was on some news media programs, but I'll do say this for my conservative brothers. I didn't hear it on Fox News, and I looked for it. So if you did hear this on Fox News, please send me the clip so I can publicly acknowledge it. But I didn't see it on Fox News. And if I did see it on Fox News, and if it was on Fox News, I am sure that the people on Fox News are saying that this is a good thing. But what really got me upset is that I didn't hear anything from people. Because, see, people should understand that this is wrong. It doesn't take a black person or a white person or a green person or a yellow person to say something is wrong. It takes a moral person to say something is wrong. It takes a moral person to stand up and say, you know what? I don't like that. I don't think this is right to erase this part of our history. Something happens in your family, something that's shameful. You want to forget it because it's shameful. I get it. But you know, how many times in our families have we tried to bury things that after we resurrected them and dealt with them, brought the family closer? But we don't want to do that when it comes to slavery and the exploitation of the American Indian. Somehow we just want to omit that it ever happened. So if you're silent about this after me bringing it to your attention, I'm going to tell you, in my opinion, from my personal point of view, I think you're complicit. I think that somehow, some way, that if you're silent, that you have to agree with what he's doing somehow, some way. You should be outraged for that black friend that you know. You should be outraged for that black coworker that you know. You should be outraged for the potato chips that you eat and the peanut butter you put on a sandwich. You should be outraged for every time you flush your toilet. You should be outraged because it was given to you by someone that this executive order is trying to say doesn't exist anymore. Okay. And if you say to me, hey, I've got black friends, but you do nothing about this, then I think you're black unfriendly in my point of view. But here's the problem that I have after that. Once I get past the people, what really got me upset is I didn't see anything from anybody, any of our leaders, any of our political figures. I didn't see anything from our entertainers. Our black entertainers, where are you? We buy your records. We buy your CDs. We buy your clothes that you sell us. We buy your sneakers. We watch you on TV, our sports figures. We go to your concerts. We are your fans. You're a part of us. Somehow you broke that glass ceiling, but now all of a sudden, are you telling me that because of your $100 million contract or because of the arenas that you sell out, somehow you have forgotten that you were still classified as 3/5 of a human being? Because I didn't hear any outrage from you. I didn't hear anything from you. I see commercials from Jamie Foxx telling me to go to a casino and spend my last money on something I don't even need to gamble with, but he's not saying anything about this. I'm upset about that, and I'm upset about it for our white entertainers that have the luxury of having amassed a great following of Afro-Americans who go to your concert, who buy your clothes, who buy your jerseys and wear them proudly and watch you and root for you on TV. Where are you to say for my black friends that's on your Twitter account of 1 million or 2 million people that fill up your arenas too, that you dance to our dances and sing to our lyrics? Where were you to say this for my fans? I'm outraged. I didn't hear from you. I don't understand that. So I'm disappointed and I'm shocked and I don't get it. And what really got me, my really point of contention and disappointment, was that I didn't hear anything from the American church. Where's the church? Because you see, when people don't raise up a standard for a wrong, the church should. When entertainers don't say anything, the church should. When politicians don't say anything, the church should. Where is the church on racism? Where is the church on slavery? It's just like everybody else. The church don't want to talk about it because it's shameful. Church don't want to talk about it because it's not good for the numbers. It's not good for the numbers. It's not good for the pews. It's not good for the people in the seat. Because if I bring up something heavy and shameful like that, people are going to say, you know what? I'm a racist, or I'm a bigot, or you know what? I'm woke. This is a woke church and I'm out of here. So the church don't talk about it. And the church enjoys the luxury, some churches, of having mixed congregations. So you have these mixed congregations, And inside these congregations, you tell them to all get along. You have your little parties inside the church. You have your anniversary services inside the church. You have us sit next to each other inside the church. You tell us to worship with one another side by side inside the church. You tell us inside the church that heaven is colorblind, but you don't prepare us for when we leave the church that we're dealing with a country somehow that forgotten its shameful past. And because of that, there is inequities in our society. You don't talk about those inequities, and you don't talk about that there's a world out there, and there's a lot of people out in that world that you technically, pastors, should be preparing them to go out. You just keeping everybody all nice and happy inside your church because you don't want to talk about race. And don't tell me after this election cycle, you don't want to talk about some political issues, not after this election cycle, when you elevated your king. So I don't get it. But personally, from my point of view, I'm going to tell you that I think it's an embarrassment to the cross. Because, you know, from what I understand about the gospel of Jesus Christ, when I love what Jesus loves and I hate what Jesus hates, I'm going to tell you the truth. Jesus wasn't colorblind. Did I say that right? No, I didn't say that right. Jesus was colorblind. And I'm not going to edit that out either. Jesus was colorblind. Jesus wasn't a bigot. Jesus wasn't a racist. Jesus wasn't a homophobe. Jesus was a man that touched the untouchables, and he spoke to people that society back then did not want him to touch and did not want him to speak to. He spoke to people of different races. He crossed barriers. He broke barriers. So if you're out there preaching a gospel that doesn't include this and doesn't talk about loving your neighbor as yourself, it doesn't matter if they're black, white, purple, green, gay, straight, trans, then you are pushing a watered down gospel for your own agenda. And that's a fact. That's clearly a fact. And I don't understand it. And when it comes to our American church, I'll say this, you know, another reason why our American church don't talk about slavery or racism, because the church itself, the American church itself, the American evangelical Pentecostal movement was birthed and started on racism. There should not be an Assemblies of God. There should not be a Kojic or Church of God in Christ. There should only be one ministry under God, with blacks and whites celebrating together and the gifts of the Spirit and all that God gave to the church on Azusa Street. But because the white Pentecostals didn't want to celebrate with the black Pentecostals and didn't want to worship with the black Pentecostals had to go to the back of the church to have their Pentecostal meetings. And they just said, listen, I just get tired of this. So they went and they formed Kojic, Church of God in Christ, which is a black organization. And the white Pentecostals said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to call something called the Assemblies of God. And they started their organization, which is predominantly white. Go to both of those websites. Look at its structure. You'll see that it's similar. Look at its superintendents. Look at all of its people throughout all of the satellite offices. And how many white people are you going to see in the leadership of Kojic? And how many black people are you going to see in the leadership of the Assemblies of God? For you see, that's why the church won't talk about it, because 11 o'clock in the morning is still the most segregated time in America. And so we don't want to talk about it. And then you know what really got me? I've got to call you on this. I've got to call my pillars on this. You know, those pillars that I talked about, those pillars that I said a week ago were the ones that we love, those ones that we grew up with in the faith, those ones that told us that our king was a good man, a fair man, a godly man, a man that loved what Jesus loved and hated what Jesus hated. But what I don't understand is why aren't they saying anything? Now, I've got to ask some questions right now to Paula White. Paula, may I call you that? Paula? You got a black church. You got a black church that you took from a black man, Zachary Timms, when he died. And after you took that black man's church, you assimilated those people into that church, and you built your ministry on the fact that you can relate to black folk. You can relate to poor folk, because, Paula, part of your story is that you grew up in a trailer park eating government cheese, for which some people are saying right now is all false. But nevertheless, Paula, I didn't hear you say anything, because you said that you were a modern day Esther. Now, Paula, I will call you that. Surely you know the story of Esther. Surely you know, Paula, that Esther is a story about a little girl, a Jewish girl that was placed strategically in a foreign government because her race was facing annihilation, because the king had signed an executive order, if you will, saying that the Jews would be assassinated and nobody could do anything about it. Paula, they were trying to wipe out the Jewish history. And so Esther had this access to the king. And Esther used her access to the king to bring about justice for the Jews. Paula, I don't understand why you're not using your access to the king to bring about justice for the Afro-Americans that's in your church under your purview. Paula, I don't understand it. I didn't hear nothing from T.D. Jakes. T.D., may I call you that? I saw you on the Today Show talking about your heart attack. I saw you on the Today Show talking about what you went through, and I'm sorry for that. I've been praying for you about that. I'll say it again. I think you need to sit down, because you got other issues, and you got Diddy behind you coming up in that May trial. I don't know if you got anything to do with that or not, but I know you're doing a tour, and you're talking about your heart issues a month before Diddy goes to court, but I haven't heard you say anything about our king trying to wipe out my history, your history. You got a church of over 20-something thousand, 100,000 people. But for those people, TD, I'm going to call you that. You're not speaking up for those people. I have not saw you on the Today Show saying that this executive order is wrong. Joni Lamb, Joni, may I call you that? Joni, you've got Daystar, a billion-dollar media empire, and a lot of black folks watch you every day. But I don't hear you talking to your king, even though you went to the inauguration party on the company jet that was probably paid for by the money that people sent in, the black folks and the white folks and the elderly who couldn't afford to pay for that fivefold blessing, but they sent it into you, that you went on a company jet, paid for your $103,000 honeymoon with. But Joni, I will call you that. I have heard nothing from you. Creflo Dollar. Creflo, I shall call you that. I ain't hear nothing from you, Creflo. You told me that tithes and offerings was wrong, but you never gave me back all the tithes and offerings that I sent into your ministry, but you wanted a $65 million jet and you got one. Creflo, I dare call you that. You've got a black church in Atlanta, but I have not heard you say anything about all those black people under your purview that this executive order is trying to get rid of their history. Rod Parsley, Rod, I shall call you that. You made your ministry on the fact that you were a white man that preached black. You've got an 85% black congregation. You stepped out of line in 2020 when you got on your pulpit and you said that the founding fathers freed the slaves, which you had to recant in tears. But Rod, I haven't heard anything about you standing up for that 85% of that black congregation saying that this is wrong. You are the president of the Center for Moral Clarity. How clear are you, Rod, that this is wrong to erase my history? I don't understand. I I try to understand it. I know that Perry Stone is not going to care about my history because Perry Stone is too busy groping on women. I get that. But I don't understand why these other guys haven't said anything. Where are you now? You told all those black people that this man was a good man, a godly man. You told all us white people that he was a good man and a godly man. But now you have all this access, but you won't use it? When there is a people, Esther, that's facing annihilation and you're not doing anything about it, how dare you, Paula? I shall call you that. You should strike the name Esther from your vocabulary. You don't have the right to call yourself an Esther. I don't understand. I'm trying to get it. I'm trying to understand it. And I didn't hear anything. But worst of all of that, I'm going to tell you the truth. Out of all the people, when it comes to church, that I got upset about, the one person that really got my ire, the one person that really got me worked up was the one that said that Trump, his quote is on a mission from God. Franklin Graham. May I call you that, Franklin? You pilot the ministry of your dad, Billy Graham. Your father was a champion for civil rights. Your father was a good friend of Dr. Martin Luther King. But if this executive order goes through, that friendship never happened. Franklin, I shall call you that. Because you see, your father was a rope cutter. You probably don't even know what that is, but let me tell you the story of your father. When your father used to go and preach in the South, there used to be a white rope, and it separated the black people that would come to his crusade and the white people that came to his crusade. And your father, Billy Graham, said, I allowed it for a while, but every time I did a crusade, some consternation would just get in my spirit. And he said, one day, he said he just had enough. Your father, Franklin, went down to that aisle, and your father cut the rope. And when he cut that rope and he told everybody they had to sit together, he lost people, he lost ushers, but he never put the rope up. Franklin, may I call you that and show you that right there is your father. Your father created that. That's what he did when he cut the rope. He said it was okay. He said I did matter. Your father said I'm not 3/5 of a man. I'm a man just like he was created by God. Franklin, I dare call you that. You have said nothing. Shame on you for running that ministry, Franklin. And I ask you, Franklin, I'm going to ask you, I've got to ask you this. Was it okay? Is it God's mission? You said he's on a mission from God. You said God set up kings and he takes down kings. You said that he's got something on him that the enemy hates, and that's the anointing. You said that he can't be stopped. He's on a mission from God. Is it a mission from God, Franklin, to erase a person's history? Is it a mission from God to promote injustice, police brutality? Is it a mission from God to erase my culture and my contributions, Franklin, for every potato chip, for every time you flush the toilet, because we all have to do that? Is it okay to erase my history, Franklin? I dare call you that. It's wrong. That's not the gospel, Franklin. That's not what your father taught, Franklin. That's not what your father preached, Franklin. I call you that. I don't give you the respect of the office that you hold because you yourself and Polar and Creflo and TD and Rod don't respect the office. I don't understand. I don't get it. But let me tell you something, people. Let me tell you why this matters so much. Because slavery happened. You can't get rid of it. You can't ignore it. It was brutal. It was ugly. It was shameful. Shameful. Yes, I agree. But we can't get rid of it. We can't get rid of it. It was without conscience. And Billy Graham Franklin said it was sinful. We were killed. Blacks were beaten. Blacks were hung. Blacks was SA'd. Blacks was taken away from their families. They were whipped. Some never made it back home, Franklin. But you call that woke. I've got to tell you something right now, Fox News. I've got to tell you something, my conservative brothers and sisters. Do you know what the term woke is? And do you know the history? See, this is something else that Black Americans have given to society, but you have bastardized it and you have cut it up and made it into some sort of folklore. Let me tell you what it means. The word woke comes from the civil rights movement. It was a time we would say to Black people when they left the house or they were going out to work in the morning, we say, stay awake, stay woke. Because if you didn't stay awake or stay woke, when the sun comes down and that Black child wasn't back inside their house, they may not get inside their house. If they didn't stay awake or woke, they wouldn't understand that the reason they didn't get the job was not because of the content of their character, but was because of the color of their skin. They were told to stay woke. Because even though there are good men and Black men of all different colors, they had to understand that there were still some that will deny them justice, that will put them in jail falsely, that would beat them and put guns on them, that would shoot them, that would hose them down. That's what the term means. Stay awake, stay woke. But you have destroyed a word that we gave society in remembrance of the pain that we went through. I am woke. I teach my kids to be woke. I teach my kids to stay awake because still in this day, a Black person can leave their home and not make it back. Still to this day, there are Black sons and daughters that left out of their homes and they weren't awake. And they never made it back home, and we're not looking for them. And I don't get this. No, I am awake. I am woke. But you're anti-woke because you're trying to get rid of my history. I want my white brothers and sisters to join me and say that this is wrong because I know you care about me and I know you love me. You can't erase it. There is a disproportion of wealth. There is economic inequality. There is housing difference. There is criminal injustice. There is unfair labor. There is unfair hiring. There is unfair education. There is. Because it happened. It's history. We're on the bridge of truth. Now, whether you don't like it or not, whether you think it's unfair for me to complain about those things, I will respect you, but don't you dare try to change the bridge of truth. Don't you dare act like this didn't happen. Don't you dare strip me of my history. Don't you dare tell me I never gave you anything because I'm 3/5 of a man. But every time you jump on that toilet and hit that flush button, it's because of me. Not cool. Not cool. I am woke. And I pray that a lot of us stay woke. I want my white brothers and sisters to be woke. I want them demand to be woke. We can't get rid of this. We have to embrace the shame because when you embrace your shame, you feel dirty. You ever had that feeling that you felt so dirty, you felt like you needed a shower and you were clean? And you even got in the shower and you let it run on you, thinking that somehow it would wipe away that shame, but you still came out of that shower clean, but inside you still felt dirty because shame leads you to feeling dirty. Dirtiness leads us a desire to feel clean. A desire for cleanliness leads us to Jesus. Jesus leads us to repentance. Repentance leads us to change and change. And Jesus eliminates the shame. We've got to embrace the shame. We can't run from it, America. You can't hide from it, America. It happened. It was ugly. That's the problem. And let me tell you my last reason for this, and I'm going to let you go. And this is what's really going to hurt a lot of people and make a lot of people angry. And I bet a lot of people circulate this only because they're trying to twist what I say. But I'm not going to let you get away with it. I'm coming to you today, I said, as part of a white man, but I'm also coming to you today as a Jewish man. A story for another point of view. But I'll tell you this, if you're going to erase Black history, you might as well erase the history of the Holocaust, because those are two parallel issues. You see, Hitler tried to annihilate a race. He did it with murder. He did it with essays separating families. He denied them basic services. He gave them slop to eat. He killed them. He experimented on them, and he put them in camps, concentration camps. We call that slavery. It's a parallel. But how come in America, the Americans are so easy to give that empathy, to give that sympathy to those that suffered from the Holocaust and give them the right and the space to grieve? Because it's not America's shame, it's Germany's shame. And so we as Americans look at every other country and we point out what it's done wrong, but we don't want to put that thing and get rid of this plank in our own eye and deal with our own shame. You can't erase the Holocaust. And I'll tell you something else about the Holocaust. The people that perpetrated the Holocaust was chased down. They were prosecuted. Some of them were taken care of, if you will. And justice, a measure of justice, was given to the Jewish population for what they went through in the Holocaust. Any remembrance of the Holocaust, any pictures or statues are freely torn down. And if somebody dare puts up a sign or make a salute that reminds my Jewish brothers of what they went through, everybody runs to their defense and say, no, stop that. How dare you put that up? But here in America, when it's your shame, you're telling me you're going to put back up that Confederate flag and you're going to put up that statue of Robert E. Lee. It doesn't matter how I feel, even though I share the same scars as my Jewish brothers because we went through the same types of pain. You're giving them that room and respect and empathy and security and protection. But for me, you're telling me get over it. It's just a flag. Let me tell you about that flag. I worked for a $1 billion company. I worked for a $1 billion company. And this company had a diversity department. A diversity department that was responsible for making sure that all of us employees understand the different races and different cultures that worked in this melting pot of this $1 billion company. But while they were teaching diversity over here, every single time in the very office that they were teaching the diversity, where the diversity department was the center, I was working in that office and I had to go into the mail room every single day to get my mail. And do you know what happened to me every time I opened up the door to the mail room? I heard the song Whistling Dixie. Oh, I wish I was in the land of cotton. Old times are forgotten. I had to listen to that every single day. And finally, I couldn't take it no more. I went to human resources and I said, this is offensive to me. This is wrong that I have to deal with this. And let me tell you what I got for my troubles. For my troubles, I got clipped. Oh, they said it was something else, but I got clipped. But let me tell you the good news about that. There was a guy there that didn't like this and said to himself, this ain't right. This was somebody that I worked next to in the cubicle. And we became great friends. We shared each other's story. We found out even though we were different, we had commonality in music and culture. And this person stood up for me and said, this was wrong. And you know what? He was a white man. And he got clipped for his trouble. for standing up for me. Oh, they said it was something else, but see, they couldn't separate us. We were bound together on that bridge of truth, of respect and admiration. And he wasn't going to let me fall, and I wasn't going to let him fall. And that man is my brother. So while I'm sitting here and I'm trying to understand why you give our Jewish brothers so much space to grieve and so much respect, and we went through the same things, you won't give it to me. And I'll tell you something else. In that level of justice, the Jewish population have been given reparations. They've been given something as a token for the pain. It can't make up for it, but they've been given something as a token for what they went through and what they suffered and what they endured. It's called reparations, right? Well, for 400 years, Afro-Americans have been talking about every election cycle, reparations. In every election cycle, somebody promised us that we're going to get reparations, and they'll have discussions about it. But it never happens. And when we bring it up again to society, society tells us that's woke, because your version of woke is when I see an injustice that's done to me because of my race, to my gender, to my sexual orientation, and I say to society as a whole, this is an injustice, but we have to balance that injustice. Because I want balance, you call me woke. And so when I say, where's my reparations? You tell me to shut up. But here's the funny thing about my king. You know, my king does care about reparations. Your president, my president, cares about reparations, and I'll tell you why. I know bridge of truth. Because our president freed the insurrectionists from January 6th. Those people that stormed the Capitol looking to hang Mike Pence, or not, do something bad to Mike Pence. Those people that were looking for Nancy Pelosi, those people that assaulted police officers, those people were tried by a jury of their peers, and they were sentenced to federal jail for a very long time. But see, our president, throughout his campaign, he said those were patriots. And he said that there was no insurrection. It was all one big love fest. Donald, may I call you that? And so not only did he pardon them, there's been a conversation where I believe it was on Fox News, but it was on the media, where he said because these patriots lost their job, because they were labeled as insurrectionists, because of those things, they lost their job, they lost their houses, the ability to earn wealth. They were not able to put their kids in school, no, send their kids to school. And because of this inequality that they went through, there are discussions right now to provide them with financial reparations. I have to say, Donald, I dare on this occasion call you that. Donald, not cool. My king, not cool. You're going to give reparations to the insurrectionists, but you ain't going to give no reparations to me because I don't exist. Because you see, to my king, Esther, those insurrectionists are 5/5 of a man. They're whole. But to him, to my king, I'm only 3/5 of a man, and I don't deserve reparations. That's why. That's why. So finally, I'll tell you something else. If we try to erase this, if you try to erase this, time is like a boomerang. And when you ignore time and you think you can throw time away, time just gains more and more velocity, and it comes back around and it pops you upside your head, and it's harder than it was before. If we don't deal with this shame, it's going to repeat itself. Maybe not in my lifetime, maybe not in your lifetime, but America is ripping apart at the seams. And if we don't deal with this shame, I dare say we're going to repeat it, but in this time, it's going to be worse. It's going to be worse. And if we try to erase this history, we minimize the opportunity to make it better. We minimize the opportunity to bring us together in reconciliation. It minimizes when you try to erase shame, you minimize your ability to be free from that chain by asking the person to forgive you. And if you have been wronged and if you've been carrying a shame and you try to erase it, you limit your ability to be whole. By accepting forgiveness from your perpetrator, you have to deal with it. You've got to try to take the opportunity to make shame better, to get through shame, to get over shame. That's the power of the gospel. Jesus Christ endured the shame of the cross. He didn't try to get rid of it. Some people say, he said, Father, if it's possible, take this from me, rewrite history so I won't have to sacrifice myself. But no, not my will, your will be done. And because it was your will, Father, I'm going to embrace the history. I'm going to embrace the shame of the cross so that others will be able to unload their shame on me. You have to do it. I'm asking for all my Black Americans to contact your council people, your Congress, your senators, and tell them that this executive order is wrong. I want all of my Democrat and Republicans to contact your Congress and your senators and tell them this is wrong. And if they erase a people's history, you are certainly going to remember it in the midterm elections. I'm asking all of our Christian pillars. Paula, I do call you. TD, I call you. Creflo, Rod, I am calling you out to make the call to your king and tell your king that this executive order is a bad idea, that you've got Black congregants who are not going to take kindly to this. I'm asking my Christian brothers and sisters to share this message. And I'll tell you something else, Franklin. If you erase this history, you are erasing what your father did. You are erasing the sacrifice and the courage it took him to cut that rope, Franklin. I do call you that. I'm asking people to pass this message on. I'm asking them to think about someone that they love. I'm asking them to do something about this. I'm asking them to open up their eyes. I'm asking them to face the shame. If you got shame in your past, don't run from it. Find somebody that can help you face that shame and deal with that shame. Set that chain free of shame. Move on from shame. Repent from shame. Change from shame. Grow from shame. Be stronger from shame. Be victorious in shame. But don't try to erase the shame. And that, for me, is a certain point of view.